Hello, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, and wellness coach, and today I thought I'd share a little bit of an introduction to my own benzodiazepine journey. It began 5 years ago, and I had been prescribed another drug called Cymbalta for fibromyalgia, and I had a lot of negative symptoms from the Cymbalta. And I had asked my doctor at the time, she was my neurologist, and I asked her if she would just help me taper off the drug. But instead, she fired me. Literally, she fired me. I guess I was too difficult of a patient. But nevertheless, I found myself isolated and alone and unsure of what to do. And so I started going from doctor to doctor seeking help. And so I found a new physician. And I told him I was having all these problems. But instead of him taking me off of Cymbalta, he added a new drug. He decided a benzodiazepine is the answer because I was having severe insomnia. I was having a lot more anxiety and depression. And he thought he would just prescribe Ativan. So I look back and I think, I wish I knew now. I wish I knew then what I know now. But whatever, I learned. And so I'm here today to talk a little bit about it. You may be familiar with tranquilizers or benzodiazepines such as the Ativan or the Xanax, and there's many different forms of benzo drugs. But I wanted to just speak a little bit about what I've learned through the past 5 years and what a valuable experience it has been. And so, we could look at our experiences and we could either respond to it negatively and let it mess us up for life and destroy us, and who we are in our dreams. Or we could take these nightmares and these messes and use it for a bigger, more positive message. And so I have decided to use my story with benzodiazepines and with the Cymbalta and fibromyalgia to use my own experiences from being in a very dark place and use it for something good. Because I know there are people out there, such as yourself, who may be experiencing negative symptoms, who may be feeling isolated right now. Perhaps you've been prescribed some form of benzodiazepine and you're questioning in the back of your mind if this drug is really good for you or if it could hurt you or if it's even helping you. And you may have a lot of confusion right now. And so I'm here to just give just a little bit of my story in this introduction. And so what I wanted to start with is that I want to validate you because I really feel that I was not validated 5 years ago when I was struggling. I was not validated. The doctors didn't listen to me. And it was a very difficult situation where I felt extremely alone and uncertain of my future or what steps to take. And based on the drug and the category of the drug, which is the benzodiazepine, it's a powerful, potent chemical that can really greatly impact a person's ability to make their own choices. It makes it harder for a person to advocate for their health because benzodiazepine on the lowest dose, taking it for a short amount of time. So if you're at the lowest dose for 7 short days, you may potentially become physically dependent on this drug. And so what does that mean? That means you're no longer living your life the way you used to. And even if you may have started off with problems and you thought you had pain or you thought you had anxiety or panic attacks or insomnia or whatever the reason is that you began this benzodiazepine, it may actually spiral quickly out of control. Now, of course, I'm not saying this will happen to everyone. Everyone is unique. Everyone responds differently to drugs because we each have our own body. We each have our own medical history. We each have our own chemistry. And whether you're taking another drug, so you might be taking maybe 1 drug, maybe 2 drugs, maybe 3 drugs or more. That makes a big difference. Okay, so let's start off right away with, if you're only taking 1 drug, it's easier to determine that there could be potential problems, that there could be a negative reaction or severe interactions. But when you start combining chemicals, when you put together, you got the one prescription and then another doctor, he prescribes you a second prescription, and then that third doctor prescribes you one more on top of that. And then, oh, don't forget, you're taking some over-the-counter drugs, and, well, you might be taking some natural alternatives too. So we start mixing this whole big blend together, and things get fuzzy. It's no longer black and white. It's now gray areas. And in these gray areas, you find yourself with this dark cloud of despair over your head, and you feel like you're losing your mind. And I want to validate, if you feel like you're losing your mind, I validate. You very well could be feeling that you are in a position that you have no control. Because what happens is benzodiazepine, it wreaks havoc on your central nervous system, on your neurotransmitters, on your cognitive function. And so many people can find themselves unable to focus, unable to concentrate. They can't remember simple things such as their birthday, their address, their phone number. They might be able to try to compensate for a while, but through time and through different, through the months, the longer you're on this drug, it will definitely take a very harsh impact on your entire body. And we're not just speaking your mind now, we're talking your organs, your kidneys. Think about it. Drugs do get filtered through our kidneys. So our bladder and our kidneys, our liver, our body, and every organ and every cell is definitely influenced by this drug. And so it not only wreaks havoc on our health and on our mind and on our cognitive function, it could impact us spiritually. I could say in my own experience, I am a woman of faith. Prior to this drug, I had already been, at that point, it was about 16 years walking in a relationship with Jesus. And I am a huge believer. And I can say that my faith really changed during the experience because I was no longer able to really fully grasp what was going on in my life, let alone what God was doing and what these drugs were doing. And I couldn't even think. So if you can't think and you can't form sentences and you can't form thoughts and you are clouded by these chemicals that are so extremely potent and that really do destroy your central nervous system, you lose a lot of joy in life. You sometimes can get lost in the shuffle. But what I wanted to say, and I want to get back on track here, is that there is hope. That even when we're in the deepest, darkest tunnel, and we feel like we're screaming for our lives and nobody's hearing, and we're trying to talk to our doctors or our therapist or our husband or children or family, friends, maybe we even have a therapist, and we're going to counseling and we're seeking help and we're getting nowhere, and we're getting nowhere fast. If this is the situation you're in, I want to validate you. I've been there. I've done that. I fully understand where you are. And I want you to know you are not alone. Okay? No matter what you're going through, you are not alone. There's thousands upon thousands of people every day struggling with benzodiazepines, and even just in itself, all psych drugs. Basically, all psych drugs. I mean, benzos, in my own experience, are the worst, but all psych drugs have negative implications. They have long-lasting effects. The long-term outcome is not good. It's not good. People think they're doing what's right. They go to their doctor. They look up to their doctor. We respect these physicians. They're board certified. We believe in them. And I used to, until I learned the hard way and I had an experience that was close to death from these drugs. And it's a scary feeling, and it's a place where nobody wants to be. But yet that's where I found myself 5 years ago. And I had to, on my own, gain knowledge, gain insight. And so the one thing I want to say today is, no matter how bad you're feeling, no matter how much your health has been influenced by this drug, and if you're taking many drugs, you could be dealing with severe interactions, and it would be to your best advantage to start getting answers, to start doing your own homework, your own research, educating yourself. Find out, are your drugs interacting? That's number one. Number two, I would never say cold turkey. I'm actually definitely aware that any psych drug should never, ever, ever be cold turkeyed. It is a dangerous, dangerous situation. However, I know from my experience, I didn't have a doctor to help me. I didn't have one single knowledgeable doctor to help me. I was alone. And I started reading. I started my own little discovery. And that's when I decided to slowly taper the drug. I'll be the first to say it wasn't easy. Thank God for Dr. Heather Ashton, who has the Ashton Manual. I highly recommend you get onto her website, you read as much as you can, you learn the protocol, you connect up with others, whether it's benzo buddies or a benzodiazepine support group, connect up with others who are going through or had possibly in the past gone through what you're going through, because support is number one. Educating yourself, advocating for yourself, being knowledgeable is power. Next, I wanted to say, what happens with benzodiazepines is that after a short while, you build up a tolerance. So perhaps the dose you were prescribed 5 months ago, it no longer works. So you have to keep increasing this dose. And what happens is you reach this tolerance level where what used to work no longer works. And you might be feeling that your symptoms are exasperated. Okay, so you have more anxiety, more depression, more aggressive, hostile behavior. You may be in a situation where you don't even feel like you are yourself anymore, and you could have major medical problems on top of it. Everyone is different on how they respond, but most people have cognitive impairment. They can't think straight. They can't remember. They can't concentrate, and it's very hard to go to a normal job because you could barely get out of bed. Next would be a paradoxical reaction. Now, what is a paradoxical reaction? What it is the opposite effect. Okay, so you are given a benzodiazepine, and let's just say it's for insomnia, or it's for panic attacks, or it's for anxiety. The very reason you were prescribed this drug could end up you have this paradoxical effect that actually exasperates the symptoms, and they become worse. So what does this mean? How does it impact you on a daily basis? Well, it could cause you more anxiety, more aggression, more agoraphobia, where you feel the need to stay home. You don't want to leave your home. You're not sure why, but you have this fear of going into social situations, getting out there in the public. You may be homebound. You may have sleepless nights. You're tossing and turning. Your cognitive function may be depleted even further. You may have other physical ailments cropping up out of nowhere. Just weird things. I started getting, more kidney stones, more bladder infections, more muscular pain. I mean, the list was endless. Oh, let's not forget, that's when I discovered too I was gluten intolerant. So I ended up having to go on this huge diet. In the middle of this mess, I had to change my eating habits. In reality, I look back and I think it was the best thing I ever did, but it didn't make life easy. I mean, you're already going through a lot, and then you have to up and change your diet and lifestyle. However, your diet really does matter. Try to back off caffeine, alcohol, other drugs, including over-the-counter drugs. you really, really, really need to consider nurturing yourself, taking time out to care for you, pamper you, spend time listening to music that's uplifting. If you are a believer or if you have any form of faith, seek God. If you can't get help through your church, if you have anyone, even one person who will minister to you, encourage you, go and seek their help, their prayer, their support. You don't have to be a person of faith. Many people have different beliefs. So whatever you believe, seek your peace and serenity because you need it. Next, let's move on to the end result is you may feel right now that you will never get out of this dark place. You may feel consumed. You may feel trapped and stuck. This may be the darkest, scariest, hellish ordeal you've ever experienced. And I understand because I had felt the same way, and that was my experience too. So I wanted to say that healing is a choice. We each have the decision to make. Am I going to lay in bed and start focusing and dwelling on how bad I feel and how helpless I feel and how alone I feel and how my pain is hurting me and it may be hurting my family? Or am I going to come up with some positive, productive solution to get out of this mess? And the answer is to move forward in a positive fashion, even if it's taking little itty bitty tiny baby steps every day. The message I have today is that I slowly but surely was able to climb out of that pit. It wasn't overnight. It took me several years. The withdrawals were wicked. I had windows of wellness and I had withdrawals that were just the most hellish, frightening experience on earth and as evil can be. But I kept moving. I kept believing. I sought refuge. I thank God for being there for me because without God, I really don't know how I would have done it. And because I am a believer, I really do have, this spiritual side where I do look to God. And I thank God for helping me to get through this horrific experience. And I pray that you are able to hold on to that hope that, I was able to do this and you can too. And your experience may be different. Your timing and when you are able to get well could be a totally unique experience. We might not have the identical experience, but you have to trust that brighter days are ahead. There is hope. There is healing. There is health. It's waiting for you on the other side. You have to keep moving, keep believing and trusting that you will get through this. You will overcome. And if you'd like to connect with me on my website, it is danaarcuri.com. If you want to read in length my benzodiazepine story, which also gets into, of course, the Cymbalta, different various medications. I get into natural remedies that helped me. I get into the fibromyalgia, and there's different bits and pieces of my story that you may relate to, or perhaps someone who is your loved one may relate to also. Nevertheless, my book is Harvest of Hope, and it is the story of living victoriously through adversity. And so I thank you for joining me today. I pray that you're able to move forward and to not lose hope, because there is hope. There is always hope. Thank you and have a blessed day.